She wore her wedding dress to her own funeral. The church bells of Savannah were still echoing when Ava Monroe realized her fairy tale was a lie. Her groom, Ethan Cole, wasn't waiting to hold her hand down the aisle. He was waiting for her to die, so he could be with his beautiful white mistress. Her best friend Janelle had mixed the poison. Her family smiled for the cameras, and with every step down that aisle, Ava's heart whispered the same truth. Those she loved most had already buried her in their hearts. She had dreamed of this day since she was a child. Now that dream felt like a coffin closing. The white silk clinging to her skin no longer meant love. It felt like a shroud. Each heartbeat grew heavier, every breath sharper. Love had promised her forever, but forever was ending before it began. And as the bells kept ringing, one question burned through the silence. How do you survive when love itself wants you dead? If you think you know what Ava did next, stay with this story. Share your guess below. Her revenge is just beginning. Morning light spilled across the white sheets, warm and gentle, like a promise. Ava Monroe opened her eyes to the soft hum of wedding bells in the distance. A diamond ring caught the sunlight on her finger. It sparkled like hope. In the mirror, her reflection smiled back. Flawless hair, calm face, steady hands. Downstairs, her father, Richard, called out, proud and restless. "The reporters are already outside, sweetheart." Ava laughed softly. "Let them wait, Daddy. Just for a moment." Janelle entered, perfume floating behind her. "You ready to be Mrs. Cole?" she teased. Ava smiled. "I've never been more sure." But her voice trembled, almost invisible. As Janelle zipped the gown, Ava whispered to herself, "Please let this happiness last." For years, she had built her life around this man, this day, this illusion of safety. She thought love had finally chosen her. She had no idea love was about to betray her. Outside, the wind lifted the lace curtain. The bells grew louder, and somewhere beyond the door, her future was already crumbling. Ava held the bouquet close as she walked down the quiet hallway. The satin hem of her gown whispered against the floor. She stopped in front of Ethan's room, heart pounding with excitement. She wanted to surprise him. Then she heard his voice, soft, cold, almost playful. "She'll be gone soon," Ethan said. "The pills will finish her before the vows." Ava froze. Her breath caught in her throat. A woman's voice followed, smooth and familiar. "Already mixed in her drink," Janelle whispered. The bouquet slipped from Ava's hand. Flowers scattered across the carpet. Ethan laughed. "Once she's gone, everything she owns will be ours." Ava pressed her hand over her mouth to stop a scream. The world tilted around her. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Janelle's voice lowered. "You'd better act heartbroken, Ethan. Everyone's watching." Ava stepped back, shaking, tears blurring her vision. The people she loved most had turned into strangers, and in that moment, her dream died before she did. Ava ran. The sound of her heels echoed through the marble hallway. Her gown caught on the corners, ripping with every desperate step. She didn't care. She only needed to breathe, to get away, to live. The corridor spun around her, lights flashing, laughter echoing from the floors above. She stumbled, gasped, and kept running. Her thoughts broke into fragments. "He wants me dead. Janelle, my best friend. Why?" Tears streaked her cheeks. She tore off her veil, tossing it aside like a broken promise. The air outside the ballroom felt heavy, pressing on her chest. Each breath burned like fire. Each step screamed, "Survive." She turned the corner, nearly slipping on the marble. "Please, God," she whispered, voice cracking. "Not today. Not like this." The elevator was too far. The stairs, her only chance. She grabbed the railing, heart pounding so loud she could barely hear the bells anymore. And as she stumbled down, her white dress dragged behind her, looking less like a bride's gown and more like a ghost fleeing her own wedding. By the time Ava reached the lower floor, her vision was fading. The hallway spun like a carousel. She could hear her father's voice somewhere ahead, steady, certain, safe. She pushed open the door to his suite. "Dad, they want to kill me. The words came out like broken glass. Richard turned, confused. "Ava." "What?" Her knees buckled before he could finish. The bouquet she had dropped earlier was still tangled in her fingers. Richard caught her, panic flooding his face. "Ava! Somebody help!" Her chest rose weakly. Her lips moved, but no sound followed. In that moment, everything slowed. Her father's arms around her, her white gown spreading across the carpet, the faint echo of wedding bells above. For a brief second, she thought she saw Janelle's shadow in the doorway, watching, silent, smiling. Then everything went black. The wedding of Ava Monroe was over, and the nightmare had just begun. Her breath faded into silence as footsteps rushed closer. Somewhere above, the music died, and the show began. The hallway filled with shouts as people gathered around Ava's motionless body. The music had stopped. Guests whispered, terrified. Then Ethan appeared, pushing through the crowd with perfect panic painted on his face. He dropped to his knees beside her, his voice breaking just enough to sound believable. "My love, please wake up," he cried, clutching her hand. His tears fell on command, every sob rehearsed. "You promised me forever." Phones flashed. Cameras rolled. The crowd gasped. To them, Ethan was the picture of heartbreak, but behind his lowered lashes, his lips curved into the faintest smile. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, pretending devotion, hiding triumph. Inside, his thoughts were cold and sharp. "It's done. She's gone." Her father shouted for help, but Ethan's voice drowned his out. "Someone call the doctor, please," he wailed, holding her close. And when the paramedics arrived, Ethan whispered softly so only he could hear, "Goodbye, sweetheart." No one saw the flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. To the world, he was a grieving groom. To himself, he was a man finally free. Flashing lights, sirens. The ambulance raced through the streets of Savannah, Ava lying pale in the back. Ethan sat beside her, head bowed, face wet with fake tears. He kept glancing at her still hand, waiting for any sign of movement, but there was none. He leaned back, eyes dark. Perfect, he thought. At the hospital, doctors rushed her away. Nurses surrounded her like angels in white, shouting orders, pushing gurneys. Ethan stayed outside, clutching his phone. His mask of sorrow never slipped, not even when the screen lit up. A message appeared. "Good job. It's done." Ethan's lips twitched upward for just a second before he buried his face in his palms. Around him, people whispered, some praying, some staring. They saw grief. They didn't see greed. Minutes turned to hours. Cameras waited outside the emergency room. Ethan sighed dramatically, glancing at his reflection in the glass. His eyes looked red, perfect for sympathy. His hands trembled on cue. Everyone thought Ethan Cole was broken. In truth, he had never felt more powerful. Inside the cold hospital room, the air hummed with machines. Beeping monitors, dripping IVs, the quiet rhythm of survival. Ava's body lay still beneath the white sheets. Her skin was pale, her lips colorless, but deep inside, her heart beat faintly. Steady, alive. Then her fingers twitched. The nurse gasped softly, stepping closer. Ava's eyelids fluttered, her lashes trembling against her cheeks. She opened her eyes slowly, confusion and fear mingling in the dim light. "Please," she whispered, voice faint as dust. "Don't tell them I'm awake. Not yet." The nurse froze, uncertain. "But your family—" Ava's gaze sharpened. "Not yet," she repeated, stronger this time. The nurse nodded, pressing her lips together. Silence filled the room again, broken only by the machine's steady pulse. Tears slid down Ava's face, not of pain, but of realization. She was alive. She had a chance. Outside, Ethan smiled for the cameras, believing she was gone. Inside, Ava Monroe opened her eyes to vengeance. Dr. Hayes entered the room quietly, the lines on his face deeper than before. "Ava," he said softly, "you scared us all." She sat up slowly, the hospital gown loose on her shoulders. Her voice trembled, but her words were sharp. "Someone tried to kill me, doctor. I need your help." He frowned. "Do you know who?" "Yes," she whispered. "Ethan and Janelle." His eyes widened. "That's impossible." "I heard them," she said. "I heard every word." She took a shaky breath. "They want me dead for my money." Dr. Hayes exhaled, pacing near the window. "You should call the police." "No," Ava said firmly. "They'll hide. They'll win." She paused. "But if they think I'm dead, they'll show their true faces." He looked at her, disbelief mixing with fear. "Ava, that's dangerous." She met his eyes. "So is trusting the wrong people." For a long moment, the doctor said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. And that was the moment Ava Monroe stopped being a victim and started becoming the storm. Night fell over Savannah. The hospital was quiet except for the steady hum of machines. Dr. Hayes stood beside Ava's bed, a small vial glinting in his hand. "This will slow your heartbeat," he said gently. "You'll look gone, but you'll still be here." Ava nodded, her face calm, her eyes burning with purpose. "Do it." He hesitated. "Are you sure?" She smiled faintly. "I've never been more sure of anything." The needle pierced her skin. The cold liquid spread through her veins like ice. Her breath slowed. Her body went still. Dr. Hayes checked the monitor. The line flattened, the sound faded. He whispered, "I'm sorry. She's gone." Moments later, he made the call. Within minutes, the news spread. Ava Monroe is dead. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters cried. Ethan clasped his hands in fake sorrow. But in that silent room, her pulse still whispered beneath the stillness. Ava Monroe wasn't gone. She was waiting. By dawn, her body would be home again. Cold, still, and perfect for the lie she needed the world to believe. The Monroe mansion stood under gray skies, draped in silence. Cameras lined the gates. Reporters whispered as black cars filled the driveway. Inside, chandeliers glowed dimly over a room dressed in lilies and grief. Ava lay in her coffin, the image of peace. Her skin pale, her lips soft, her gown white as moonlight. To the world, she looked like an angel who had fallen asleep too soon. Ethan stood beside the casket, his hand pressed dramatically over his heart. His tears came easily now. Every sob was a performance, every pause timed to perfection. Guests murmured condolences. "Such a tragedy," one woman sighed. "She had everything." Ava's father, Richard, nodded solemnly for the cameras. Her stepmother dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. They looked like a perfect grieving family, except for the flicker of impatience in their eyes. Outside, thunder rumbled softly. Inside, fake sorrow filled the air like perfume. No one knew that the woman in the coffin could still hear them breathe. And beneath the calm mask of death, Ava's heart waited, cold, silent, alive. Late that evening, the lawyer stood before the family, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "According to Mrs. Monroe's final instructions," he began, "her will shall not be read until 10 days after her death." A hush fell over the room. Ethan blinked, confused. 10 days? That's ridiculous. "There's more," the lawyer continued. "Each day, only one person may enter this room to mourn her privately, alone. No exceptions." Gasps echoed. Richard frowned. "That's absurd. What's the point?" The lawyer's tone remained firm. "Her words, not mine." Ethan forced a smile for the crowd. "Of course, we'll respect her wishes." But his eyes darted toward Janelle, uneasy. Behind him, guests whispered, "Strange rule." "Clever woman." Ethan clenched his jaw. A part of him wondered what Ava had known before she died. The lawyer closed the file. "Those who refuse will lose their inheritance." The room went silent again, and for the first time that night, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt before: fear. The first day of mourning began with rain tapping the mansion's tall windows. Ethan entered the room alone, a black suit tailored perfectly to his lies. He stood over the coffin, staring at Ava's still face. "Finally," he whispered, "it's all ours now." The door creaked. Janelle slipped inside, her heels quiet on the marble. She wore black, lips painted crimson. "You shouldn't be here," Ethan said softly. "I couldn't stay away," she murmured, glancing at the coffin. "She looks peaceful." "Peaceful enough to be gone," he said, smirking. He reached for Janelle's hand. Beneath the sheet, Ava's fingers twitched. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest, though she didn't move. 10 days, Janelle whispered. "Then the will is ours." Ethan leaned close. "And so are you." They kissed above the coffin. Ava's tears slipped silently into her hair. Outside, the rain grew heavier, masking the sound of her muffled breath. For the world, she was dead. For them, she was a ghost listening to every lie. The next morning, the mansion smelled of roses and deceit. Ava's stepbrother Kevin strutted into the morning room, hands in his pockets. His sister, Ella, followed, chewing gum, her perfume sharp and loud. Kevin stared at the coffin. "Guess the cars are mine now," he said with a laugh. Ella rolled her eyes. "You can have them. I want the beach house. Always loved that view." Kevin snorted. "That's fine. She won't be needing it." Ava's heart tightened. She had paid for Kevin's business, saved Ella from debt. Yet they stood here dividing her life like vultures over a feast. "Funny," Ella said, tapping her nail on the casket. "People said she was generous. I say she was naive." Kevin grinned. "If not for her money, we'd never hang around her." Their laughter echoed off the walls, hollow and cruel. Beneath the white veil, Ava's fists clenched tight. Her pulse quickened, rage warming her cold skin. She had given them everything, and still they wanted more. Richard Monroe entered the morning room with his wife, Grace, that afternoon. His shoulders were heavy, his steps slow. He stared down at his daughter's face, whispering, "My little girl." Grace placed a gentle hand on his arm. "I know this hurts, honey," she said softly, "but look at the bright side. We won't have to rely on her money anymore. Everything she owned will come to us." Richard said nothing. His lips trembled, eyes wet. "I suppose you're right," he murmured. Ava's chest ached beneath the stillness. Every word stabbed deeper than poison. Grace continued, her voice low and calm. "She must have left something for you. You were her father." He nodded slowly. "Yes. After all, I raised her." Tears filled Ava's eyes. The man she'd loved more than anyone had just sold her memory for comfort. Her body lay still, but her heart shattered into 1,000 silent pieces. For the first time since the wedding, Ava felt truly dead. That evening, the mansion fell silent again. The air was heavy, the candles low. The door creaked open, and a woman in plain black stepped inside. Celeste Monroe, Ava's mother. She had not seen her daughter in years. Everyone believed she had abandoned her, but her trembling hands said otherwise. She walked slowly to the coffin, each step breaking her heart a little more. "My baby," she whispered, touching Ava's cold hand. "I never stopped loving you." Tears rolled down her cheeks, falling onto the silk. "He made you hate me," she said through sobs. "Your father. He pushed me away. He said you'd be better off without me, but I fought, Ava. I fought for you every day." Ava's tears slipped silently beneath the veil. Her heart, shattered by betrayal, now cracked open with something softer, understanding. Celeste knelt beside her, crying harder. "I missed your first dance, your heartbreaks, your laughter, but I never stopped waiting for you." And under that white shroud, Ava felt warmth again. For the first time in years, love didn't hurt. It healed. The 5th day came quietly. No cameras, no lawyers, only the people who had served Ava, maids, the gardener, the cook, the butler. They entered the morning room in silence, heads bowed. They stood around the coffin, their eyes red, hands trembling. No one spoke of money. No one asked about the will. They prayed softly, voices low and sincere. "She was kind," whispered the housekeeper. "She treated us like family." The cook nodded, wiping his eyes. "She made sure we always had food at Christmas, even when the rich guests didn't care." Ava listened beneath the veil, her heart swelling. Their grief was pure. It was the first truth she had heard since she died. When they left, one man lingered near the door, Marcus, her driver. His eyes were wet, his posture rigid. He waited until the others were gone, then turned back to her. He didn't know it yet, but he wasn't done speaking to her. And Ava didn't know it yet, but what he said next would change everything. Marcus stepped closer, his footsteps soft on the marble. He stopped beside the coffin and stared down at Ava's still face. His breath trembled. "I should have told you," he whispered. "I should have warned you." Ava's heartbeat quickened. "I saw them, Ava," he continued. "Ethan and Janelle. I knew something was wrong, but who would believe a driver?" His voice cracked. "I didn't want to lose this job. I was afraid." He bent lower, tears falling freely. "And now, look at you." "I waited too long." He paused, swallowing hard. "I loved you, Ava. From the first day I drove you home. You smiled at me like I was somebody. You made me feel seen." Beneath the veil, Ava's lips parted slightly, trembling. "I stayed close," he said softly. "Not for money, just to be near you." He brushed the side of the coffin with his fingertips, whispering, "I hope you find peace, wherever you are." Then he turned away, shoulders shaking. Ava's tears fell silently into the fabric. For the first time, her heart beat not from fear, but from love. When the room fell silent again, Ava's eyes opened beneath the veil. The weight of 5 days pressed against her chest, but something inside her had shifted. Her father's greed, her friend's betrayal, her siblings' laughter, her mother's tears, and Marcus. His voice, his love. Every emotion burned together until they became something sharper. Clarity. "They think I'm gone," she whispered under her breath. "Let's see who they become when no one's watching." Her fingers curled slowly, a pulse flickering beneath pale skin. This wasn't death anymore, it was rebirth. For the first time since the wedding, she wasn't afraid. She was awake, body weak, but spirit alive. The house outside buzzed with gossip. The greedy waited for their turn to mourn. They had no idea the dead woman was listening, learning, remembering every word. And as the 7th day neared, Ava Monroe began to plan. Not for love, not for forgiveness, but for justice. By the 9th day, the mansion no longer smelled of flowers. It smelled of money, perfume, and deceit. Family members gathered in the grand hall, dressed in black but laughing softly. Wine glasses clinked. Gold jewelry sparkled. The woman they once called sister, daughter, wife, had become a story to tell. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his hand brushing Janelle's beneath the table. "Tomorrow, it's ours," he said quietly. Grace smiled from across the room. "Finally, some peace," she murmured to Richard. He didn't answer, just stared at the floor. Kevin bragged about the car he'd already picked. Ella whispered about the beach house she'd redecorate. The lawyer entered, reminding them, "Tomorrow, the will shall be read." The room grew still for a moment, but only for a moment. Laughter returned quickly. No one saw the faint shadow move past the upstairs window. No one heard the whisper of silk against marble. Ava Monroe was done listening. Tomorrow, they would hear her. The 10th day dawned gray and heavy. The Monroe mansion buzzed with greed disguised as grief. Chairs scraped, voices whispered. Every face wore its best mask of sadness. The lawyer entered the room holding a black briefcase. His expression was calm, unreadable. He set the case on the marble table and looked around. "Before the will is read," he said slowly, "Mrs. Monroe left one final instruction." Ethan straightened in his seat. "What instruction?" The lawyer opened the case and pulled out a flash drive. "You all must watch this video first." The air shifted. Murmurs spread through the room. Grace frowned. "A video? Of what?" He didn't answer. He plugged the drive into the television. The screen lit up, filling the room with cold light. Richard's hands trembled slightly. Janelle crossed her arms, pretending calm. Ethan forced a grin, but his throat tightened. The lawyer stepped back. Mrs. Monroe insisted this be played before her will is read. Silence fell. The lights dimmed, and as the first image flickered across the screen, everyone leaned forward, unaware that their secrets were about to destroy them. The room went still. On the screen, Ethan appeared, smiling, arm around Janelle. They were laughing, entering a hotel room together. Gasps filled the air. Ella covered her mouth. Richard's face went pale. "What is this?" Ethan shouted, his voice shaking. The lawyer said nothing. Another clip appeared. Janelle pouring something into a glass, whispering, "Already mixed in her drink." Grace faintly murmured, "Oh my God." Ethan lunged toward the TV. "Turn it off! This is fake!" "No, Mr. Cole," the lawyer replied. "This was sent by Mrs. Monroe herself." Another video played. Ethan counting money, his voice low. "Once she's dead, it's all ours." Janelle's hands flew to her face. "Ethan, stop!" The room erupted. Kevin shouted. Ella cursed. Ethan backed away, face drained of color. "This isn't real. She's dead." But deep down, he already knew it was. The final clip froze on his smirking face. The room was silent again, heavy with the truth. And then the screen went black, only to come alive again with Ava Monroe's voice. The crowd froze as her image appeared. Ava Monroe, alive on screen, radiant in white. Her eyes were calm but cold. "Now that I know how much you all loved me," she said, her tone sharp with irony, "here's my will." Ethan stumbled back. Janelle's lips parted, trembling. Ava continued. "To my dear husband, Ethan Cole, and my so-called best friend, Janelle Carter, the two people I trusted most, you'll walk away with nothing. Every dollar, every house, every title I gave you is gone." Gasps filled the room. Janelle began to cry. Ethan clenched his fists, shaking his head. "To my stepbrother Kevin and my stepsister Ella, stay away from me. You have no place in my life." Kevin cursed under his breath. Ella looked away. Ava's eyes softened. "To my father and his wife, I leave $5 million, not out of love, but to keep my hatred from falling on your children." Richard bowed his head, tears sliding down his face, and then Ava smiled faintly, her tone shifting. "To my mother." The room went quiet again. "To my mother, Celeste Monroe," Ava said softly. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." Celeste sobbed in the back, trembling. Ava continued, her voice steady now. "But before I move forward, let me finish what must be done." Her eyes hardened. "Ethan, Janelle, your crimes don't end with betrayal. They end with justice." The doors burst open. Police officers stepped in, their voices sharp. "Ethan Cole and Janelle Carter, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Mrs. Ava Monroe." The room exploded into chaos. Ethan shouted, "She's dead! You can't arrest me for killing a ghost!" Ava's recorded voice echoed from the screen. "I'm not dead, Ethan. I just needed to see who you truly were." Ethan froze. Janelle collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Handcuffs clicked, cameras flashed. Grace hid her face. Richard whispered, "Dear God." As the police dragged them out, the lawyer stood silent. For the first time, justice didn't come from the living. It came from the woman they tried to bury. The chaos faded. Celeste stood, her face streaked with tears. On screen, Ava looked straight into the camera, eyes no longer cold, but full of pain and peace. "To my mother," she said softly, "I'm sorry. Sorry for believing lies that kept us apart. Sorry for hating you when I should have been holding you." Celeste covered her mouth, shaking. Ava's voice trembled. "You loved me when no one else did. You fought for me even when they made me hate you. From this day on, I'll make it right." The room was silent. Even the greedy bowed their heads. Richard wept quietly. Grace looked away. Celeste whispered, "I forgive you, baby. I always did." The screen flickered, the image fading into white, and as her mother cried, somewhere deep inside that mansion, a heartbeat stronger than any lie began to rise again. Ava Monroe's story wasn't over. It was finally becoming hers. The screen flickered again, revealing Ava's calm face. Her tone softened, her eyes glowing with something new. Love. To Marcus Reed, she began quietly, the man who stood by me when love was dangerous. Marcus froze where he sat among the crowd, his hands trembling. You saw me when I was invisible. You cared when no one else dared. You protected me without expecting anything in return, Ava said, her voice breaking. Tears welled in Marcus's eyes. His chest rose and fell quickly. She continued, You loved me when love could have cost you everything. If your heart still feels the same, be mine. The room went silent. Every face turned toward Marcus. His lips parted, but no words came. Outside, thunder rolled again, echoing like a heartbeat. Inside, his tears finally fell. I still do, he whispered, voice shaking. And though she wasn't yet standing before him, Ava heard it, somewhere between the silence and the storm. For the first time since death itself, love felt real. Before anyone could react, the massive doors of the Monroe mansion burst open. The sound crashed through the hall like a clap of thunder. Gasps spread across the room as the figure in white appeared, alive, breathing, radiant. Ava Monroe stood in the doorway. The crowd froze. Some screamed. Others whispered her name in disbelief. Richard's knees buckled. Grace clung to his arm. Marcus rose slowly, tears blurring his sight. Ava, he breathed. Ethan's jaw fell open. Janelle shook her head, whispering, No, she's dead. Ava stepped forward, her heels echoing against the marble floor. The white gown shimmered, the same one she wore to her funeral. You wanted me gone, she said, her voice steady, but I'm still here, stronger than ever. Marcus ran to her and pulled her into his arms. The crowd erupted in cries, shock, and awe. Celeste covered her mouth, sobbing with joy, and for the first time, Ava smiled. Not in pain, not in fear, but in triumph. The doors opened again, but this time it was not Ava who entered. It was justice. Police officers stepped into the hall, their voices firm and clear. Ethan Cole, Janelle Carter, you are both under arrest for the attempted murder of Mrs. Ava Monroe. Ethan stumbled backward, panic in his eyes. You can't arrest me. She's alive. You can't prove anything. The officer replied coldly, We can, and we will. Janelle began to cry, reaching toward Ava. Please, I didn't mean it. It was all him. Ethan turned, snarling. Shut up, Janelle. Two officers grabbed their arms. The click of the handcuffs echoed like a verdict. Ava watched in silence, her face unreadable. Ethan met her eyes one last time, his voice cracking. You poisoned us both, Ava. With your love. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. As they were dragged away, the cameras flashed again. Not for a wedding, not for grief, but for justice. And, in that moment, every lie finally collapsed beneath the weight of truth. When the noise faded, Ava stood in the center of the hall. The same walls that once trapped her now felt like open air. Marcus approached her slowly. His hands trembled as he reached out. It's over, he whispered. Ava looked up, her eyes full of quiet fire. He poisoned me, she said softly, and called it love. Marcus cupped her face gently. You're free now. Those words hit her harder than any betrayal. Free. She took a deep breath, feeling her chest rise without pain for the first time in weeks. The weight of every lie, every heartbreak, began to lift. Her mother stepped forward, pulling her into a trembling hug. You came back to me, Celeste cried. Ava smiled through tears. I never truly left. For the first time, the mansion was silent. Not out of grief, but peace. Ava Monroe was no longer the woman who died for love. She was the woman who lived for truth. Morning light spread across Savannah, soft and golden, touching the walls of the Monroe home. Ava stood near the window, her gaze calm, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The house that once held whispers of greed now breathed quiet peace. Every scar, every betrayal had turned into proof of survival. She no longer carried her pain, she wore it like armor. Marcus stood beside her. Their silence spoke of everything that didn't need words: truth, freedom, forgiveness. Outside, the world moved on, but for Ava, time finally stood still. Greed had tried to own her, love had betrayed her, but truth had given her life again. And though her story had closed, its echo lingered, because somewhere, another woman was fighting to rise too. Stories like Ava's don't end. They remind us that strength lives in silence and hope grows where trust was broken. For those who believe in that kind of strength, stay close. Follow the stories that make your heart race. Let's subscribe, turn on the bell, and never miss the next one. Because every woman who falls deserves the chance to rise again.